After half a century of treating patients, what's your assessment of India's metabolic health today?
In Western world, you need to be obese as in obese, BMI 27, 30, 35. Only then your risk for diabetes really increases. In India, it's very common. If the people in India who had diabetes and pre-diabetes were made into a separate country, it'll probably be the 5th or 6th largest country in the world. Imagine 20 million people need a kidney transplant. We are not even doing 10,000 transplants in India in a year.
So why is there this disconnect between what we know in our lab and research and how we actually treat patients in the clinic?
Most doctors are trained to treat diseases rather than to prevent. Nutrition has to be a very important part. The other thing which you also emphasized in your book quite rightly is the importance of sleep. We looked at another paper, we looked at timing of sleep. Those who go to bed between 10 to 12 survive the maximum. After 12, 1, 2, 3, the mortality increases. Replace part of that carbs with protein. Carbs are directly adding to your insulin resistance. It will increase your glucose level, it will increase your insulin level, so your insulin resistance goes up, your inflammation goes up. All that you are cutting off when you add protein. See, there are people who come every 3 months. There are others who will come once a year, some won't come back at all. There was a 50% reduction in new onset kidney disease and eye trouble in those who came regularly.
Dr. Mohan, you started working alongside your father, Dr. M. Vishwanath, who's called the father of diabetology in India, when you were just 18 years old. That was 1972. Since then, you have published over 1,900 research papers, trained 75 PhDs, and Stanford University now ranks you as India's #1 medical scientist in endocrinology and metabolism. So after half a century of treating patients, conducting research, and watching this epidemic unfold, what's your assessment of India's metabolic health today? Are we just winning, are we losing, or are we managing the decline?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me on this interview. And I must say at the beginning itself that I am one of your fans. I have read your book, Sick Nation, from cover to cover, and very impressed by the unbiased view in which you have studied the whole subject, and I think your book kind of sums up the whole thing. To put it into perspective, since you mentioned some dates, in 1972, when I joined my father, there was a study done on diabetes by the Indian Council of Medical Research, and it was a multi-center study. It was the first one ever done, and the prevalence of diabetes in the big cities was 2%, and that in the villages was 1%. Recently, we have completed the big study, nationwide study called as the ICMR Undiagnosed study, which was not just done in cities and in villages, but in the whole country, state by state. Here what we find is that in some states, you take Kerala or you take Puducherry or Goa, the entire state, now 26% of people in the state are having diabetes, and in the cities it's already crossed 30% of people having diabetes. So from 2% it's gone to 30%. In the villages, it's coming up to 20% in some villages, in some states, and in Kerala, surprisingly, the rural prevalence is actually higher than the urban prevalence, because there's no urban-rural divide at all in Kerala, as you know. It's just one complete urban now. So this is huge, from 2% to 25-26% over a 50-year period, tells you how much of diabetes there is. If you want the actual number of people with diabetes in India, according to the ICMR Undiagnosed study, which you have quoted in your book, it's 101 million people with diabetes and 136 million people with pre-diabetes. I used to joke that if you add both these together, 101, 136, it's 237 million people, so that if the people in India who had diabetes and pre-diabetes were made into a separate country, it will probably be the 5th or 6th largest country in the world. That's the number of people. To put it in another way, the number of people with diabetes in India itself is 4 times Australia's population.
Wow.
So why I am mentioning this is we often go to conferences where somebody from Australia will come and say, oh, we are able to do this in our country, we are able to do that in our country. Then I just smile to myself and say, the whole of Australia is New Delhi's population, and we are only New Delhi to look after, we can also do a great job. With no aspirations to Australia, they're doing a fantastic job. But I'm saying that our problems are multiplied so many times, and add to that we have cultural, socio-cultural differences. Every 100 miles you go and the dialect changes, the food changes. So with all that, we do have a huge problem. And it's not, the Undiagnosed study also showed there is not just diabetes and pre-diabetes. Take hypertension and obesity. There are more than 350 million people. That's more than US's population. So after India and China, the third largest country in the world is the United States. Then comes Indonesia. So if you take the number of people who are obese in India or have hypertension in India, it's more than US's population. So those are the kind of numbers you're talking about. So you're absolutely right when you call it as a sick nation. And the other thing is not to sound pessimistic, but these numbers are growing. It's not that we've seen the end of it and now it's all coming down. It's only growing. And so in the next 5 to 10 years, those numbers can actually double. And then we are going to have a situation where we are simply not able to look after all the sick people. Because assume that even 1/5 of them, okay, let's take the 100 million itself. Let's say it won't even go up, it's only 100 million. Suppose 1/5 of them develop kidney problems. You've got 20 million people with kidney disease in India. Imagine 20 million people need a kidney transplant. We are not even doing 10,000 transplants in India in a year. Where are you going to go and give 20 million people kidney? Okay, 20 million people may have kidney disease. Let's say only 5 million of them need a transplant. 5 million, you're talking about, that's Denmark's population, you know, all needing transplant in India. How many people are going to donate a kidney? So the only thing that we can do is to prevent diabetes, or if you have diabetes, keep it under control so that nobody develops complications.
That same research that you mentioned, if I recall correctly, it also mentioned that 57% of the people who had diabetes were not aware that they have diabetes.
That's true.
Could you talk about that?
Yes. So all over the world, a large proportion of the diabetes remains undiagnosed. Type 2 diabetes, you know, there are different types of diabetes, and type 1 diabetes you will get quickly diagnosed because sugars go up so high, children become very sick, and they will go into coma if they are not diagnosed. So that's a separate, that's a very small percentage, only 1% of all the diabetes. Type 2, which is the commonest form of diabetes, can remain undiagnosed for years. And that's a very sad thing because all that time damage is going on and the person is not even aware. So in India today, it's still on an average more than half of the people being undiagnosed. Some states, for example, you take Tamil Nadu or Kerala, where the government goes to people's homes and screens everyone. You know? So there it's come down. It's probably about 20% or 25% who are undiagnosed. But there are states where for every known person with diabetes, 3 are unknown. That means 75% are unknown in some parts of the country. So when you have undiagnosed diabetes, it's an opportunity lost. They don't even know. So how are they going to control when they don't know? You may say, how can they have diabetes and not have symptoms? That's the problem. That's why we call it as a silent disease or a silent killer, because it produces no symptoms at all, and yet you can have diabetes for 5-10 years. Very often, only after the eye is affected or kidney is affected, they even find out that they have diabetes. And the doctor tells them, sorry boss, you've had diabetes for 10 years, you didn't know about it. And the patient says, how should I have known? Well, they would have known if they'd gone for a master checkup. I think you mentioned that correctly in your book. Don't wait for symptoms, but go for at least for an annual checkup. You go for an annual checkup and check your sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure, liver function, kidney function, the basic things. You will pick it up. Even if you missed it this year, if you don't have it, next year you will definitely pick it up. That's the only way. So screening is the only way in which you can pick up undiagnosed diabetes. And that you can do either in a structured way like some governments do, going to the homes of everyone and then checking, or at least do opportunistic screening. What I tell people is, people come to the hospital or to a clinic or to some place for something, maybe for a fever or for something else, they just come. Why don't you just do a sugar? We're checking the temperature, we check the respiration, we check the pulse, we check the BP. Why don't you check on sugar also? It takes you 5 seconds, put it into a glucometer and you will get a reading, even if it's not 100% accurate. Some accuracy is there, you will not miss. Anywhere it can be done, any rural area, in a mountainous area, village, any place, where you don't have a lab, you can still do it.
Right.
So there's no excuse for not diagnosing diabetes.
So, Dr. Mohan, if nothing changes in the way we eat, move, or detect, uh, where is India in 20 years?
It's bad. The situation is bad because the numbers of people with diabetes will go so high that no government will be able to afford to treat everybody who has complications. We are not worried that much about diabetes itself. We are worried about its complications.
Right.
If people develop heart attacks and they need a bypass or they need stenting, okay, or admission into an ICU, who's going to treat? If millions of people do that, there won't be enough hospital beds, number one. Number two, kidney, another costly complication. Once you develop at least heart can be fixed,
Right.
put a stent in and then do something. Your kidney is a point of no return. You go into kidney failure and then unless you either do a transplant or dialysis for life. Transplant, it has to work first
Right.
of all, very expensive, you have to get a kidney and then after a few months or years it may reject, then you need another transplant. So these are not things which any country will be able to, no government, no NGO, no amount of charity will be able to look after that. But the good news is that even if you have diabetes, if you are able to detect it early, detection is so easy.
Right.
You don't need PET scan or mammograms or CT scan, MRI to detect. Simple blood sugar you can check for any number of people you can check. And it's easy, 5 seconds you get the answer, not expensive also. Once you diagnose, if you keep the A, B, C, D under control,
Right.
A is A1C, keep it at least below 7%, even tighter if possible. B is blood pressure, keep it under control for your age, whatever is the blood pressure given, keep that under control. Ideally around 130, 80 or below. But for an older person who has something, even 140, 90 may be okay. C is cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol. People say there's nothing called cholesterol. It's all social media, hype saying that there's nothing called cholesterol. We have been fooled all this time. No need to take statin. Totally wrong. Cholesterol is important. If you don't keep your cholesterol under control, your bad cholesterol LDL under control, it will definitely clog your arteries. It can lead to strokes, heart attacks, gangrene, amputations, and so on. So C, cholesterol is also important. D is discipline. You
Professor,
obviously have to.
I want to go deeper into D, and I will save it for later.
Yeah, okay.
Because I want to really
D is discipline.
Yes,
we'll talk about that.
Yes, so we will keep that for later.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think an average person doesn't realize is the scale of this problem.
Yeah.
It is truly at a epidemic level.
Yeah.
I mean, an average person doesn't understand the amount of resources, infrastructure it will take to manage this epidemic in 20 years if nothing changes.
Yeah.
That is why you have, India's billionaires mostly now investing in hospitals and
Yes.
getting into, because they know this data really well, and they know the direction in which it is headed. Hopefully, as a population, we become. I have mentioned in my book that we have to have a proactive mindset. I actually like to say the phrase that you should be the CEO of your own health.
Yes.
Because the system is not designed to prevent.
Yeah.
It is only designed to treat the disease.
Correct.
So I think the only way forward for India is that at individual level, everyone needs to be proactive when it comes to their health, and a lot of things that you have mentioned, which we will cover in a sec. But before that, I actually want to ask you another important question. Most of my younger friends who are in their 20s and 30s, they think that diabetes is an old person's problem. But your work says that we are wrong. So I would really appreciate if you actually break this illusion for us.
So there were 3 myths which, they're not myths, but at that time, 100 years ago, they were all true. They said it's a rich man's disease. Okay.
Plagues of prosperity.
Exactly. So they said it's a rich Bengali who is obese, and these are the descriptions 100 years ago. There was a very famous man called Dr. Bose who did a lot of work, and his father, Dr. Bose, once went to England and he said that just like gout is to the nobility of the Englishman, diabetes is to the nobility of India. So that's what he said. It's partly right, because that time the poor people are starving.
Right.
They were so thin, they didn't have diabetes, they didn't have anything. So the rich people ate a lot of food and so on, and so they exercised less, their vehicles, and so that was true. That's no longer true. It came to the middle class, and then it came to the poorest of the poor. Next thing was, it's a disease of old age. As you grow old, you will get a little diabetes, blood pressure, your arteries get a little thinner, thicker, and so it will get all that. Then it started moving into middle age. Then it started coming to young adults, 20s, 30s. Today we have teenagers, 12 years old, coming with obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol. Imagine 20 years later when they are 30 years old or 35 years old, they come with heart attacks, already started.
Yes.
Already we are seeing bypasses coming at 28 years. And so imagine if this goes on and every Indian, young Indian who is very successful is now having diabetes, blood pressure, the productivity of the country itself will come down. So you are right. And then the third myth was that it's an urban phenomenon. Nobody in rural areas will get it. I already mentioned that now rural areas are catching up very fast.
Right.
So it's neither a disease of rich people, it's neither a disease of old people, nor is it a disease of urban people. All changed. So in rural areas, young people who are poor have also started getting diabetes. We are recently looking at gestational diabetes.
Right.
Diabetes comes in
Pregnancy.
in pregnancy. About 10-15 years ago, some 5-6% of very obese women who come with the pregnancy used to get it. Today you go to any government hospital. We have done this in Jipmer, Puducherry, it's a government hospital. We have done it in private clinics. We have done it in charitable clinics. 25 to 30% of all women, we recently published a paper across India in the Undiagnosed study. 20 to 25% of all pregnant women in India today have gestational diabetes. 1 in 4.
Wow.
That means you have to screen every pregnant woman. Abroad, if you take Europe, UK, US, Australia, Canada, they are saying only screen women if they have a family history of diabetes, if they are obese, or they have dyslipidemia or something else. Don't screen all women, it's not worth it.
Right.
Because their prevalence rates are below 10%.
Right.
So they are saying 90%, why are we screening? For us, it's 30%. So with 30%, you have to screen 100% to pick up the 30%. So we do what is called as universal screening. Similarly, universal screening is now recommended for everyone for diabetes, especially if you have a family history and if you are obese, then everybody has to be screened. If you don't do that, you are going to waste a lot of time, and then this disease is going, the epidemic, as you said, is going to progress.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that if they have gestational diabetes after the pregnancy, their chances of developing type 2 diabetes is multifold higher than.
Not only multifold higher, again as South Asians, as Indians,
Right.
the risk is much more than a white European having it.
Right.
Because we have this inherent susceptibility to diabetes. So after pregnancy, we have done studies, within 5 years, 50 to 70% of them are converted.
Right.
I see that actually as an opportunity, as a window of opportunity. Okay, these women had diabetes during pregnancy. We are sure they are going to develop it. Why don't we start some preventive program for those women?
Right.
The other 70% did not have diabetes in pregnancy, leave them. Take this 30%. They are the ones who are going to convert fast. Why don't we see that they don't put on weight, that they follow a healthy diet, and we'll talk about prevention. So those preventive steps are given to these women and they are taught about it, and throughout the pregnancy you have to talk about that, because while they are pregnant they are very cooperative.
Right.
They are worried about the baby.
Yes.
So they keep coming. The moment that delivery takes place, they forget about themselves. Now the whole focus is on the child, and they put on weight, and what does the mother-in-law say or the mother say? You are now going to eat for 2 people.
Right.
Your child and for you, you are feeding. So therefore you have to eat double. So they put on a lot of weight.
Yes.
Within 4-5 years they come with severe diabetes.
Yes.
Once they develop diabetes, it's very difficult to reverse. People keep talking about reversal as if it's so easy to do. Only a small percentage of people are able to reverse. Prevention is easier.
Yeah.
Reversal is not so easy.
That's why it's better to be proactive than
Yes,
reactive.
absolutely.
And I think that D, which is the discipline,
Yeah.
it sounds easy, but it's super hard to execute.
Yes.
And that's why the reversal becomes also super hard.
Yes.
But actually, Dr. Mohan, I want to talk about something very interesting. Your research was critical in actually rewriting the medical rule book for Indians. You proved that the global BMI cutoffs
Yeah.
were wrong for us.
Yeah.
That an Indian is overweight at a BMI of 23,
Yes.
not 25, which is
Perfect.
the global standard.
Correct.
And I think also the obese
Obesity
standard was
is
revised to
25.
27.5.
25 itself.
25, okay, even lower.
Yeah.
So why is our threshold so much lower? And what is this the scientific explanation of what we keep hearing, thin fat Indian who looks skinny from outside, but is metabolically obese from inside,
Yes.
thin inside, thin outside, fat inside, toffee, right?
You're absolutely right, because this increased susceptibility to diabetes, which I mentioned, partly stems from that. In Western world, you need to be obese as in obese, BMI 27, 30, 35. only then your risk for diabetes really increases. Very few people you will find at 23, 24, 25 having type 2 diabetes in the West if you are a white European.
Right.
In India, it's very, very common. In fact, we are talking about lean people now. There is a separate entity, BMI less than 18.5. They are called as lean diabetes. Some people call it as malnutrition diabetes, but I prefer the term lean diabetes. We just published a large paper, some 40,000-50,000 people we have followed, and we find that a small percentage of them, about 5% of the total number of people who come to our clinic are really lean, and they are not having type 1 diabetes, they are not having any other secondary form of diabetes, it is type 2 diabetes. So, despite not even having obesity or even being thin, you can get diabetes. If your ideal body weight, BMI between 18.5 to 23, you can still get diabetes, and then by 23 it takes off, the graph takes off, and by 25 it's already gone very, very high. So, for years we struggled with this because WHO and other experts said, how can we have one set of criteria for Asians, and not just for Indians, all South Asians, to a large extent even the East Asians, Chinese and Thai, Koreans, they all seem to follow this. It seems to be an Asian phenomenon, but more particularly a South Asian phenomenon, because our susceptibility is very high. So, after years of research and experts sitting down together, the way they analyzed it is, at what stage do you cross over to diabetes? At what stage does your risk for heart disease go up? When do your lipids go up? When does your blood pressure go up? All that, triglycerides go up, all that they started looking, and they found that if you use 30 and 27.5 and all that, it's too, you are going to miss a large proportion of the people who said look very thin outside but fat inside. So, they started bringing it down, and somewhere from 23 itself the risk started going up. So, they said let us define 23 to 25 as overweight and 25 and above as obese, and certainly 27.5 as obese, which is not taken in the Western world. Normally 30 they take as obesity. So, this is very true, and unless we follow these lower BMI, in fact we will go a step further and say BMI itself, because of this lower BMI, it is not very useful.
Right.
A much better index is waist measurement.
Absolutely.
You just need a waist, because for BMI there is also source of error, because what happens is the height has to be taken very correctly.
Right.
And the weight also has to be taken, the weighing machine has to be calibrated, and that can also change when you start, and then you have got two parameters now, and so if one of them is wrong, then the whole equation will go wrong. With waist, if you do it properly around the umbilicus, but if you want to be very accurate, from the upper border of the iliac crest, that is the hip, to the lower border of the ribs, you take the midpoint, and there you just take a Taylor's tape, inch tape, and then measure what is your waist. Above 90 for a male is abdominal obesity.
Right.
The other one we call as generalized obesity. If the BMI is high, we call it as generalized obesity. Abdominal obesity, as you have mentioned in your book, is visceral adiposity inside the abdomen. If you have fat on the superficial part, it's actually protective.
Yep.
It's actually a good thermal thing, and there's something that may be good for you also. But once the fat goes in, it goes into the liver. It floats around in the thing, and then from there straight into the liver. And that's where the insulin resistance comes, which you have very nicely elaborated in your book about the insulin resistance being an important factor. So, that is why the Indians think. So, there have been experiments which have been done, and this might interest you, that in Glasgow, they did some experiments about a couple of years ago. So, they called Indians volunteers, and they called white people and who are roughly of the same weight, and said, are you willing to undertake an experiment where we are going to overfeed you, okay, and we will see what happens to you. We are going to thoroughly study, we will do biopsies, we will do MRIs, we will do everything to assess you. So, they got volunteers, South Asians volunteered, and then the Europeans volunteered.
Metabolic what study, sir?
It's metabolic
what?
Metabolic, yeah. It's called the Las Vegas study. Okay. Glasgow studies based in Glasgow. Naveed Sattar and Jason Gill, they were the people who did this study from Glasgow. So, what they did was they overfed the Indians, the South Asians, some Pakistanis, Bangladesh also included, and then they overfed the white Europeans. All of them gained weight, because when you give more calories, of course they will gain weight. But when they did further studies, they found that the white Europeans, their fat was accumulating in the abdominal wall.
Right.
not inside. Whereas the Indians, the fat was going straight
Viscerally.
in. So they did biopsies. What is the difference between the two? What they found was that in the abdominal wall, you have small adipocytes, small, and you have shown beautifully some pictures
Fat
of
tissues, yeah.
the fat cells and all that in your book. So they took the number of small adipocytes that they have, which can become bigger. Those number of those small adipocytes were smaller in the Indians
Right.
and the South Asians, whereas they had the Western population, the white man had lot of it.
Yeah.
So when you take lot of food, it will go and accumulate there, and the number of these fat cells increase, and you put on some fat here.
Yes.
In the Indians, what happens is it gets saturated very fast, filled up, nowhere for the fat to go. So that's called the fat overflow hypothesis. Straight into the visceral cavity it goes.
Yes.
The viscera keeps floating around a little bit, but it has to go and settle somewhere. Easiest organ to go is the liver.
Yeah.
So it goes and settles in the liver. So now you have got liver fat. Same thing also goes into the pancreas. So you get pancreatic fat. When you have pancreatic fat, your insulin secretion comes down.
Comes down, yes.
When you have liver fat, the insulin resistance goes up. So both are going up.
Yeah.
Okay. But you need the beta cell deficiency to produce diabetes. Otherwise, you will get metabolic obesity. Your blood pressure may go up, other things, triglyceride will go up, fatty liver will come, but you may not get diabetes. When you get the fat going into the pancreas also, your beta cells are also failing.
Yeah.
One side resistance is going up, one side beta cells are failing. That is a classic storm, as you say, to produce diabetes, and then you are into diabetes. The good news is that in early stages, it is reversible.
Yeah.
So the direct study showed that in the UK, Roy Taylor showed that very well. Of course, it's an extreme diet, 800 calorie diet, or virtually starvation. You can't eat anything except some drink which they give you. Morning, afternoon, night, you only take that 200 calorie drink or 250 calorie drink. But within 8 weeks of such a treatment, a drastic treatment, liver fat melted.
Melted, yeah.
Pancreatic fat melted. The beta cells improved. Insulin resistance came down and glucose normalized.
Wow.
And they were able to achieve remission. But easily said, very difficult to do, because when they started refeeding them, again the weight starts coming back, again the diabetes starts coming back. So that is why we are not recommending drastic things, because people won't be able to follow it for the next 25 years.
Correct.
You know, no more dosa for 25 years, no more chapati for 25 years. You have this milkshake, 200 calorie drink for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
People after 3 months, 6 months, human nature, they will give up. So what we are saying is slow steps, which we can think, which you also talk in your book. Replace part of that carbs with protein.
Right.
And that's what our Nature Medicine paper showed.
Yes, exactly.
Little bit, and you replace it with plant protein. Animal proteins are okay, better than no protein, but still better is the plant protein. If you take soya, or you take paneer, or you take Bengal gram, green gram, black gram, or
Tofu.
milk, or tofu, these things are very, very good, because they are packed with protein, very little carbs, and anyway you're replacing the carbs and then doing that. And we are able to show in our Nature Medicine paper. Nature Medicine paper was more a substitution analysis. You can't do this in a whole population,
Right.
but very powerful, that if you do this over let's say 6 months or 1 year, you can actually reverse your diabetes or get your diabetes under good control very easily. If you are in the pre-diabetic stage, you can go into remission. We talk about diabetes remission, but we don't talk about pre-diabetes remission.
Right.
After all, pre-diabetes stage before.
Yeah.
That's where we should be actually trying for remission. So easy to do it there.
Ideally, even before that.
Yeah, ideally even before that. Primordial.
Right.
Primordial prevention.
That's what I want to ask you
Yeah.
as a next question, sir.
Yeah.
I think you are the perfect person to ask this question. I mean, your work on Asian Indian phenotype, it has showed that the South Asians, we need significantly higher insulin levels to maintain the same blood
Correct.
glucose as compared to Europeans.
Correct.
So basically, we are more insulin resistant pretty much from birth.
Yes.
Also, Dr. Chittaranjan Yajanik,
Yes.
who has been very kind to also
Yes.
endorse the book,
Yeah.
his work found that when he actually did this research on the Indian babies when they were
Correct.
born,
Yeah.
and he
South
looked at
African
their body composition, and he found that Indian babies when they're born, and at that time they're just born,
Already
so
have
there are
more
no
fat.
exposure.
Already
They
have
already
more
have a higher
Fat,
percentage,
leptin level, insulin level,
yes,
even the
lower muscle mass,
Correct.
and most of
The
that.
baby is small, but they have more fat.
And mostly
more-
down the visceral area.
Correct, correct.
So the question that I want to ask you is that if this is already so clear, why is our medical establishment so focused on simply lowering the blood sugar, which is a symptom, and if you look on the spectrum, the blood sugar tends to go higher at 10, 15 years later after a dysfunction. So why is our medical establishment so fixated on lowering the blood sugar rather than fixing the underlying dysfunction, and in some cases it's insulin resistance, which is the root cause? So why is there this disconnect between what we know in our lab and research and how we actually treat patients in the clinic?
Yeah, it's because most doctors are trained to treat diseases rather than to prevent diseases.
Right.
So if you are wearing a prevention cap, as you said, we should start much earlier.
Right.
We should go into the community, find out who is, and the simple waist measurement itself is good enough. We're able to do insulin assays, then that will confirm that. But on a population level, even if you just went to the tape and went into corporates and found men, women who have above 80, who has above 90, very simple zero cost thing. You not spend a single rupee, just to the tape you can do that. And with about 80%, 90% accuracy, you can predict who is going to get. And then we have what is called the Indian Diabetes Risk Score,
right,
where we ask 3 questions. What's your age? Does your father or mother or both have diabetes? And do you do physical activity? And if yes, it is mild, moderate, severe, or 0. 3 questions which take 1 minute to answer. What's your age? You can just put. Father, mother, just tick. And this box is totally sedentary, mildly active, moderately active, severe, marathon runner kind of a thing. Just tick the box, okay? And then do the waist measurement, which takes another minute. So 2 minutes, 0 rupees still, because you still haven't spent anything on any test. And the sensitivity and specificity of diagnosing somebody in the room was full of people, and all you did was these 3 questions and the waist measurement. 72% sensitivity and about 70% specificity to pick up everybody with diabetes in the room. Now you may say, why don't you do test for everyone? Cost. You have to first of all get them all fasting.
Correct.
Then you do OGDT, then you do insulin, then you do this, you do that. So lipids you have to do, so many things you have to do. If you had only limited money and you have to do this 1.2 billion people, you can't ask 1.2 billion people come in the morning fasting. It's not going to happen. They'll say, I'll come later, I'll come something, then gets, so if you catch people anywhere, in a mall, in a doctor's clinic, in any other place, in a function, in a camp, anywhere you go, college, workplace, you just use this screening thing. With 70% of the people, if you're able to say, you guys come for the test, and what percentage of people will have that risk score of 60 and above, which we give marks for this.
Right.
So the higher the score, the higher your risk of getting diabetes. You get 0, 0, 0, suppose you are below 35 years, you have no family history of diabetes, you are a marathon runner, and your waist is 80 and you are a male, your score is 0. You will not get diabetes. 0. Your percentage of your chance of, why go and screen that person?
Yep.
You're wasting a lot of resources, lot of things. There are people who will have 100 score. How 100? Their age is say 55 and above or 50 and above. Both their parents are diabetic. Okay, so you get 20, 20, 30, like that we give. They are totally sedentary and their waist is 105. Score is 100.
Yep.
I'm yet to see somebody who does not have diabetes if you have. The sensitivity of 72 is overall.
Yep.
If you take those who have 100, it will be near 100%.
Yep.
So you already know who's got diabetes in the room. Okay. So those kind of simple things we're able to use. Every state can use. In fact, Tamil Nadu state did that a few years ago. They had a campaign where they screened 23 million people in Tamil Nadu. What is your score? Was the name of the project. Okay, one of the previous governments of Tamil Nadu. They went house to house, screened 23 million people, checked sugars and BP using this score of mine, and said, what is your score? So they find out the score and say, you need a blood test. 23 million people they screened, and they picked up thousands and thousands of people with undetected diabetes. You mentioned 57% are undiagnosed. In Tamil Nadu, it's no longer that. It's come down because they went home to home and they did that. This can be done anywhere. Any corporate can do this. Anywhere, any gathering of people. You can do it in a temple. You can do it in a mosque. You can do it in a church. This is where people go. So if we have the religious leader saying that, why don't you all get checked up? Everybody can do it free.
Yep.
Don't even charge them. There's no commercial element involved. This is the way in which you, and then you tell them your ideal weight is this, you eat little sensibly, cut down carbs, take protein, do exercise. For that you do the components of the exercise, just walking is not enough, strength training and flexibility. I call it as a FAR principle, FAR, mnemonic to remember the three components of exercise. Flexibility is F, A is aerobics, R is resistance training. So, the FAR principle. So, remember there are three components to that, the flexibility and the aerobics you can do every day, resistance training 2 or 3 times a week with some dumbbells or something to build your muscle. Indians, as you know, have sarcopenia.
Yes.
You have mentioned that. Muscle mass is
muscle
less.
mass.
And so, if you are able to build up that muscle mass, add protein, we will not only become stronger, healthier, prevent diabetes, reduce insulin resistance and prevent diabetes, we will also win more medals in the Olympic Games.
True. Actually, sir, I think what you have said is so profound because from your age, your parents' metabolic status,
Yeah.
your waist circumference, and your activity level.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to go to a camp to know that
You can
to
do
figure out
it
your score.
virtually.
Exactly.
You can do it.
I think if this
electronic. I have asked people. I've gone on television shows and said, "I'm going to ask a question. I can't hear you now,
Yeah.
but you take a paper and you write. If you this thing, write it 0. If both your parents are diabetic, you write 20. If your parents are not diabetic, put 0. And then take a waist measurement. I'll wait for you. Pick up a thing, measure it, or if you do it after the show also. If it's more than 90, you get 30 or 20 or something. Now you calculate your score. If it's above 60, you're prone for diabetes. Go tomorrow and get your checkup.
Exactly.
Done. So this you're reaching millions of people with a very simple message.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Once
That's why
you
I think
go,
it's very
what
profound.
all tests to do, that's a different thing. There are costs involved.
Yeah.
If you tell a poor man in the slum, go and do insulin level, go and do this, it's difficult. When they come to us, we can do that. But if you want to use a public health kind of cap you're wearing, the Minister of Health wants to do this for the whole country. Simple things which are cost effective, which are very low cost, these are the ones which will sell.
Yeah, exactly. I actually have two questions related to this for my own curiosity.
Yeah.
What you've mentioned is absolutely grassroots level, but still, let's say that you want to now get your diagnosis confirmed and you go to a doctor. Most of the doctors tend to look for the late stage markers like glucose or HbA1c, which tend to show up high at a very late stage after 5, 10, 15 years of dysfunction. Why are doctors not screening for, and we were speaking before about insulin and C-peptide. Why is the medical establishment fixated on measuring late stage markers and not the early stage markers?
A, because of the knowledge, people do not know that there are other markers. B, standardization of some of these are difficult.
Right.
For example, we have been very early players in this. So, C-peptide, insulin, last 40, 50 years we have been doing it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of results we have. At least 200 publications I will have related to these. So, we have done a lot of work. But there are late adopters and therefore, people don't do that. But if you go a step further, now you talked about A1C coming to the diabetic stage or A1C coming to even to a pre-diabetic stage. If you do an oral glucose tolerance test, an OGTT, okay. So, if you have the fasting above 126 and the 2-hour value above 200, that is diabetes.
Yes.
Okay. Then if you have the fasting between say 100 to 125 and the 2-hour value between 140 to 199, it is pre-diabetic stage. So, it is one stage earlier where reversal becomes much easier. There is a stage before pre-diabetes which you can pick up with the OGTT itself, but you need one more sample for that. That is a 1-hour sample. So, you do anyway they are waiting, fasting they have given, 2-hour they have given, there is a 1-hour value. Okay. The original GTT as it was described in my father's time was a 5-sample GTT, fasting 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes, and we were doing only that for years and years and years. 1996 my father died. Okay. So, I have been working from 1971-72. So, somewhere in late 1990 something, 94 or 95, I asked him, Papa, everybody has dropped, they are only doing 2 samples. Why don't we drop some of these in between? Why are we doing this 5-sample old things no one in the world is doing? He said, over my dead body, this is a gold standard test.
Wow.
Don't touch it. So, I did not have the guts to touch it. After he died, after about 4-5 years, I told my staff here, my biochemists and so on, if we were to drop, which one will we drop? Okay, 5 is difficult. 5 times poking for people, as it is a terrible test, drinking this glucose and thing. 5 times poking, 5 times, even if you put a catheter and all, become very difficult. So we did lot of logistics, and it turned out that 1 hour is very important. 0, 1 hour, 2 hours. So 0, 60, 120. Right. These are very important. If you do 30, you can get an excellent index of beta cell function. Okay. With the fasting sugar and fasting glucose, you can calculate HOMA here. So right. That will tell you the insulin resistance. Right. If you have a 30-minute one, of course, with the fasting itself, you can calculate HOMA beta also, which will tell you beta cell function also. But if you want beta cell function even better, then you get a 30-minute one. Fasting glucose and fasting 30-minute glucose, fasting insulin, 30-minute insulin. If you do this, it's called disposition index. It will tell you exactly how your beta cells are. The next, another very good way to do it is C-peptide, which we do regularly. Okay. Now, if you want to do fasting 30, 60, 120 is almost come to 4 samples. So, for GTT, we now selected fasting 60, 120. So, from somewhere around 2000 till now, we have been measuring fasting 1 hour and 2 hour. Most of the world, 95% of the world was not doing that. Right. For the last 25, 30 years, they are doing only fasting in 2 hours. But there were people in the US who continued to do, like my father, who were doing at least 3 samples. We got together and then we found that the 60-minute value goes up before the fasting and the 2 hour. Okay. So they reached out to people in the world who has this. I have got all 5 if you want, I've got thousands and thousands of samples. So we formed a group in the world where the 3 were being done, and we showed that the 1 hour value, if it crosses 155, that is the earliest marker even before pre-diabetic stage. If your 1 hour value is below 155, you won't progress. You will remain there in your non-diabetic stage throughout. If your 1 hour value crosses 155, your fasting is normal, is only 90, and your 2 hour is only 120. But this one crosses say 165, you will progress. So it's a pre-diabetic stage. Wow. So simple to do. Anyway, you're doing OGDT, simple glucose test which anybody can do. All you do is take that 1 hour value. So we published this. The International Diabetes Federation accepted it 2 years ago, and now it's being reintroduced all over the world, saying that anyway the guy is sitting there doing fasting and 2 hour, just measure that 1 hour, you can pick up a pre-diabetic stage. So without doing complicated things, because a glucose test is so cheap, 40 rupees, 50 rupees, with that you can pick it up. Of course, we have the facility to do insulin, C-peptide and all, you can do all that. But I am talking about a peripheral center, some place in Gumadi Pundi or some small town where there is only one small lab, people cannot afford much. Just taking that one extra sample is enough. This has now become standard of care, and what my father said, now I am going back and saying, oh my dead body, what he said, he was so right. If we had stopped doing it, we would have missed that 1 hour thing completely. So the old tests were designed for a particular purpose. We make it simpler, and then we forget all the importance of these old tests just for convenience. Right. And then we miss it out. So I would say there are easy ways. Use a risk score, use this 3 sample GTT. These are enough. If you have more sophistication, then you do all the other tests. Your lipids you can do. You have mentioned triglyceride by HDL ratio. We have published on that. Triglyceride by HDL ratio brings out the bad LDL, the small dense LDL, which is the one which goes and attacks your arteries, and that the best index of that is very difficult to measure small dense LDL in a lab. Whereas you do triglyceride by HDL ratio, you are getting the small dense LDL, which is a very good index of atherosclerosis. So with very simple tests, you should be able to pick up those who are at high risk.
Dr. Mohan, I know you are wearing a CGM. I wear a CGM all the time. I know there is a accessibility issue with CGM, and there's a cost factor involved. And you are obviously not diabetic. I'm not diabetic. I wear it because I see it more as a proactive, preventative tool. What's your view on this technology, regardless, keeping the cost factor and accessibility factor aside? What is your view? Is it a tool only for people who have diabetes, or is it a good preventative tool as well?
It's a very good preventative tool, and there is a history regarding this also. When I worked as an Alexander von Humboldt Fellow in Germany, 1985-86, 1 year, whole year I spent with Professor Pfeiffer, who is considered, a doyen in Europe in diabetes. I spent 1 year with him, my father's contemporary. That whole 1 year in Alexander von Humboldt Fellow, my aim was to develop a CGM. And this I'm talking about 1985. We failed because the technology simply wasn't there. There was no Abbott producing this, there was no other company producing it. So, and the machine we produced was a big machine, and we tried to do that, giving all errors and so on. Finally, I gave up at the end of 1 year. My term was over, I had to come back. And my boss was very disappointed. He said, my dream was that you will discover the CGM, and now we have failed. And then he died a few years later, and I met him, and he said, my only thing is that in my lifetime I did not see a CGM, but I predict it will come one day, he said. About 10 years later it came. About 10 years after he died, the CGM came. We were the first to introduce CGM in India. Everything we were the first. Pumps we were the first. CGM were the first. But they were very expensive. When Medtronics once came, it's only first of all, you had to wear it in the abdomen. Very painful. And only 3 days. And the cost is more than what it is today. So, no takers. But when Abbott came, and now many others have also come now, it's become very user friendly.
Right.
And so, again, you mentioned whether can you use it in non-diabetic. 10-15 years ago, when the CGM first came, we used it for our food and nutrition experiments to test the glycemic index of foods in non-diabetic people. We would give them white rice, we'll give them brown rice, and we'll see how much it goes up. We'll give them brown rice with legumes and see whether it further comes down, and see the whole graph throughout the day. If the breakfast is reduced, does the lunch also benefit from that? All kinds of experiments we have published using CGM when the company was not recommending it. The company said it's all off label. We said, we don't care if it's off label. We are doing experiments with it. We are not asking you to promote it. It's not FDA approved. Doesn't matter if FDA approved. We are using it for a different purpose. So we were the first to actually use it in non-diabetic people. I'm talking about 15-20 years ago, not now. Today, lot of people have started using it, and like you do, to see which sugars, which foods increase the sugar, which ones don't, what happens after exercise. For example, many people don't know that when you start the exercise, actually it will go up a little bit.
Yes.
Because of the adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol levels all going up a little because of the
energy.
Fight and flight reaction. So it goes up, your pressure goes up, your pulse goes up, your sugar also goes up. But then after that, after 2 hours, the muscle will take up all the glucose and it will come down. All these things we learnt only after using CGM. But leave people without diabetes. People with diabetes itself, when they are taking insulin tablet, this, that, it's a big job trying to convince them to wear it. And it's not just cost. Cost is one thing. Of course, it is 5,000, 10,000 rupees in a month, and therefore it is not a small sum. 1 lakh of rupees only for a CGM is not cheap. And I wish Indian company, there are 2 or 3 Indian companies already working on it. I know I work with scientists in the Indian Institute of Science, where they're trying to develop a cheaper CGM. They're trying to develop a pump which is cheaper for India, and artificial pancreas is cheaper for India. So if it becomes very cheap, then everybody should be wearing it. And I don't think only diabetic people, but anybody can use that. But at least people with diabetes should measure it to see which of their sugars is high. Can you do experiments by eating little healthy and see what happens? Because at least you're tracking it. If you don't measure it, you don't know. So I think it's one of the greatest gifts which have come, but we need to get it cheaper and make it more affordable.
I wish that day comes soon when the cost is so low that
everybody can use it.
I think that will be a game changer.
Just like you check on your step count on the, probably it will come in the phones as well. Already there are people claiming, but it's not yet FDA approved, and accuracy is also very important.
Yes.
Otherwise you'll end up doing wrong things. We have recently been part of a committee, international committee. I represent India on that, just published 2 weeks ago, the IFCC, International Federation of Clinical Chemists. So what we have done is we have laid down very stringent criteria for CGM. We said we can't do it for the old ones, they already come. But going forward, we said before FDA, European Medical Association, EMEA, or any other body allows CGMs to come in, they should pass all these criteria. Otherwise, they should not be allowed. We have insisted on that, particularly for the CGMs which are already into pumps, the automated insulin delivery system. because there it's completely AI driven, and the glucose that is fed to it, that is a value which it takes to release insulin
Yes.
from the pump. So if that value is wrong, let's say it gives a higher value, it will pump in more insulin and you can get hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
Or the other way, it gives a wrong low reading, then it won't pump insulin at all. So there we have said it's absolutely mandatory that only the top class ones which pass all these very strict quality control, only they can go into that. But for others also, I think we need to have some kind of quality control, because a lot of these cheaper ones are coming from abroad and flooding the market. If they are wrong, then people are going to get misled.
Yeah. I think there is a MARD score.
MARD score is a first basic step, but you have to go much beyond MARD.
Yeah. Dr. Mohan, you have said that diabetes in South Asians won't end unless we take this up on a war footing. And so I want to know what a war on diabetes actually looks like in practice. Are we talking about, I think you've already mentioned if you were a health minister for a day, then what you would do. But is there anything else that you would add to it? Mandatory screenings, or I don't know, maybe aggressive sugar taxes or warning labels on the food. What would you do what does war footing looks like, and what would you do if you had an absolute control, let's say even for a day?
Yeah. The causes of diabetes are multifactorial. They are not just one cause. It is not just an individual eating too much and put on weight, and it's a social thing. Now we ask people to walk. Where do they walk? Unless they have safe footpaths, unless they have enough green areas, parks, gardens, beaches, wherever. You have to make places safe for people to walk. That's very important if you want to increase exercise of people. Second, food. Now we ask people to take lot of vegetables, take lot of fruit. People cannot afford an apple. They cannot, so they go and buy some junk food or some fast food because that is cheaper for them. That's all they can afford. Can we give massive subsidies on fruits, vegetables and so on, so they become dead cheap? Apple is only 5 rupees. So everybody will buy an apple and eat it. Tomatoes, 1 rupee, So much, it's almost like giving it free, okay? So much of subsidy is given that we can subsidize medical education. When I studied in Madras Medical College, the topmost medical college in Tamil Nadu state, the amount of fees that I paid in my final year, okay, for my whole year was 150 rupees.
Wow.
150 rupees, that's all I paid for the whole year. That's because the government is subsidizing it. They wanted to make us doctors. If you can subsidize like that, why can't you subsidize on food? Public distribution system. After our Nature Medicine paper came now, what we found was that every government is giving so many kilos of rice, white rice, the most polished rice. Which is going, and they are going to give TVs free, which will make you sedentary, sit down. So we are actually promoting diabetes, sedentarism, obesity. Why can't we, the dal given is very small quantity. Why can't we double the dal intake, reduce the rice intake? 5 kg of sugar is given to every family. Can we make it 2 kg? Why do you need so much of sugar? Replace that 2 kg of sugar with dal or something else which is healthier. So these are things which you can do. Physical activity you can do. You mentioned labeling, okay? It's not easy because on certain things you can put labels. How do you put it on an idli or a dosa or a puri or a paratha made in 100 different ways? That is what the consumer ultimately eats, not this food stuff which you buy. Who is going to regulate all these labelings which are done? The industry is so powerful, they will put something in small print, they will do something. So that is a big thing, to keep on regulating them. If they are not putting it, who is going to take action against them? There is follow-up action. That's what goes wrong in our country. We put all these rules, then nobody follows it. What is the enforcement of that? That has to be very important. Taxes, you mentioned sin tax. Been tried in Denmark, been tried in various places, Mexico, sugar tax, fat tax and so on. What happens is you can't tax only one group of people and not another group of people. So if you tax everybody, the poor man also has to pay more for it.
True.
Okay, so they'll end up becoming poorer because they are paying the tax. And the long term benefits of them, Kerala tried it. Some sugar tax or fat tax or something they tried few years ago. Then we didn't hear anything about that, what happened. What is the follow up of that? One state did it. Did the consumption go down? Did the health improve? Okay, that is something. Now there are other causes of diabetes which we are not even thinking about. Pollution,
Right.
air pollution. We have shown that that itself is a cause of diabetes in Chennai and Delhi, where we have done studies. In the car study we showed that. Can we clean up the air? Can we produce? You will not only produce diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cancers, respiratory diseases. Blood pressure has been linked to pollution. Lipid levels going up has been shown with pollution. Glucose levels and diabetes has been shown. So, if you just reduce that three things, you are straight away getting obesity has been shown to be because it producing insulin resistance due to this inflammation, chronic inflammation that the body is going through with this. All your cells are getting, your liver cells and fat cells and everything is getting inflamed, and that can lead to diabetes, heart disease, cancers and so on. So, I think the answers are not one but many. Different sectors should join together. On one side, make food which is healthier, cheaper. Foods which are not so important for our nutrition, make them little costlier. It's like cigarette smoking came down after the prices were increased. People couldn't afford, so they started smoking less. So, like that, if you start differential pricing of what is healthy to be given cheap or free even, you know, if you start doing that, then automatically a shift will come. We say take brown rice, but not white rice. Where is the brown rice? Not even available. It's costly. Okay, it's not even presented properly. We don't even tell people why it is healthy. So, if you bring in, there's a whole cycle which needs education has to come in, availability has to be there, cost factor has to be looked after. That way, if we do, then we'll be able to change the society, encouraging people to walk wherever possible instead of going by car. From here to go to the grocery store, you take a car and go. To go to an exercise, you go by car instead of walking. You're going to the club, it's only 1 kilometer away. Add that 1 kilometer going coming, you will get 2 kilometers straight away. That people don't do, you know. So, I think a change in the now cycling is slowly becoming popular, but if you take Scandinavia, you take Amsterdam, you take all these places, people only go by Denmark, they only go cycling. Nobody goes by car, they only do cycling even to work. So, if all that, even if rich people and politicians and all these people start that, it becomes a trend. I'll also go cycling, you know, then everybody starts going cycling. So, I think it's a cultural change. Slowly we have to bring slow steps, but if we are able to do that, in the long run we will win the battle.
If I may add one thing to what you have already said, which is I think exceptional, is that I wish that nutrition becomes the part of our education system as well. I went to school in 80s and 90s, and I don't recall getting any education on nutrition. Unless things have changed now, I think it's still the same.
Even medical education, doctors don't know anything about nutrition.
So I think
we may have one class, one lesson which they'll probably skip also. And so nutrition has to be a very important part. The other thing which you also emphasized in your book quite rightly is the importance of sleep. So, you know, instead of having irregular working timings and sleeping late and things like that, comes through education only. Telling people that at 10, 10:30, 11 is your time to go to bed. God designed it, He made it dark for you to go to bed. Otherwise, you'd have kept it light throughout the 24 hours, no? So, these simple things like this play a huge role. Sleep, so we have done 2 publications from the Pure study. One is the number of hours of sleep. So, we found 6 to 8 hours being the thing. Less than 6 hours is bad. More than 8 hours is also bad. Because you're sleeping too much. That means you have something wrong with you. If you need 10 hours of sleep as an adult, there's something wrong. Similarly, we looked at another paper, we looked at timing of sleep. Because this we have in like 150,000 people, 27 countries, followed for 15 years, who died and what were they doing before. So, you can go back 10 years earlier, look at the records and see who died and what is the mortality in those who went to bed at 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock or whatever. What we found is that those who go to bed between 10 to 12 survive the maximum. After 12, 1, 2, 3, the mortality increases. If you go to bed before that, up to 9, it's okay. But if you go to bed at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, there's something wrong with you because nobody sleeps at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Some health problem you have. That may be reverse causality. Because of that, you may be going to better thing. But we look at survival curves, all U-shaped curve. If you go too much of it also, it's bad. Too little of it also is bad. So somewhere in the middle is where everything, the middle point, a sweet spot for everything.
Yeah. So the recent ICMR in-depth study which you led, which covered 124,000 people across all states,
Yeah.
Arguably one of the most ambitious and or the biggest epidemiological studies that has ever been done.
Yeah.
And for me, there were a lot of interesting points in that. Of course, everyone is talking about 60 to between 60 to 70% of our calories come from carbohydrates, but there were some really interesting things for me. For example, I think in that study there was one experiment that was done where the sources of carbohydrates were also changed. So instead of polished rice or wheat, whole wheat or millets were tested, but that did not really led to any meaningful difference in the risk for the metabolic disorders.
Yeah.
I think that was very interesting, and for me personally, because that tells me that replacing one grain with another is not the solution. And then there was another experiment that was done where only 5% of the calories were carbohydrate calories were replaced with protein. And that had a very significant, meaningful difference, improvement in the metabolic health.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that, and also if there were anything interesting other than what has been in the news, anything else that you found was super interesting in that research that is not talked enough?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I think you have summarized it very well. All over India, 62% is the average of carbs. It can go the lowest in some state is 58%, and the highest is 75%, with an average of around 62%. The protein intake, which should be about 20% for good, that's what NIN and everyone recommends, ICMR, everyone recommends that, is on an average between 8 to 12% in India. About 10% is the average. We're taking half the amount of protein that you should take. Now, it's not easy to increase the protein intake of the population for various reasons. So what we did was we did various substitution analysis. You can do this mathematically, you can do it scientifically. If you replace 5% of the carbs, 10% of carbs, what happens? It turned out that if you replace carbs with carbs, you don't get any benefit. Rice with wheat, wheat with rice, even with ragi. The millets part you might find a little interesting. Why when you replace with millets you're not getting? Because the millets are also polished in India.
Exactly.
They're not the old millets. They're all polished, just like rice. So there's no advantage changing to ragi because it's the same. Then we tried with fat. Okay, because some fats are good. Now, whichever fat you replace carbohydrate with, we didn't find any advantage.
Okay.
Then we tried protein. With protein, immediately the results came out. Whichever protein you use, you get lot of benefit. But with plant protein, it is particularly striking that if you replace carbohydrate, 5% of the calories from carbohydrate with 5% of plant protein being added, you can take whichever plant protein you like. Tofu is a good example, paneer is a good example, the dals and the pulses are also a good example, milk is there. You can use from any of the sources and you will find that there is benefit. As far as animal protein is concerned, with fish, with egg, we got the best results if you replace. With chicken, it was okay. With red meat, we did not find any advantage.
Okay.
So changing to red meat, because again the fat goes up, saturated fat also goes up. So with red meat, we didn't get good results. But with fish, chicken or egg, it seemed to be good. Egg is a particularly good one. It's one of the cheapest of the proteins, affordable by majority of people. One egg gives you about 6 to 7 grams of protein. If you take 2 eggs, you're getting 14 grams of protein. Straight away, you added 14 grams to your diet. Okay, so it's a very simple and affordable thing which you can take. Of course, the plant protein also scores very high, and we should take that. What has been you asked what is not known. People know about carbs, but people don't know that among the fats, saturated fat is also bad. Everybody now thinks fat is good. Monounsaturated fat is good, and that comes from your nuts, seeds. Of course, olive oil and all, we can't use it here. There is a Mediterranean diet which in Mediterranean region it's very common. But here our equivalents of that diet would be mustard oil or groundnut oil or gingery oil. These are high in monounsaturated fat. Coconut oil is saturated. So although it is a controversial thing whether coconut oil can be taken, if the amount is small, probably it doesn't matter. But in our studies, in the Undiagnosed study, what we found was in the places where coconut oil was taken, Goa, Kerala, the west coast where it's taken, cholesterol levels are much higher, LDL is higher, cholesterol levels are higher. So there is some correlation between coconut oil intake, any saturated fat for that matter. Again, ghee and butter, which we take, small quantities of it is fine, but they are saturated fat. So if you are going to take large dollops of ghee and thing, in Punjab for example, where a lot of ghee is taken, we found cholesterol levels are high. So we are able to correlate that with the at a population level. The mean cholesterol of Tamil Nadu, for example, is 186 milligrams, the total cholesterol. In Kerala, it is 230, 50 milligrams higher. Okay. Then you may say, is everybody in Kerala dying because they have higher cholesterol? They also eat a lot of fish.
Right.
So they make up for that, and fish is protective. And then they are educated, 100% educated. So they also take some salads. The education level is more, so they follow healthier habits in other ways. So it's not, you can't just take in isolation and say coconut oil will kill or ghee will kill or something. It's not, life doesn't work that way. It's lots of other things put together. Socioeconomic status plays a very important role. And in Kerala, there is recently the Chief Minister announced that there are no poor people in Kerala anymore. There is no more poverty. There is no starvation in Kerala, in the whole state, nobody, not a single person. Just like 100% literacy they have, 100% they have removed poverty. So when you come to that level where the poverty and all is gone, naturally your lifestyle improves. You do many of the right things which you do. So they are able, despite taking little coconut oil and all that, they are still okay.
And sir, would you say protein did better because it has double benefit? One, you're reducing the carbohydrates, so obviously you're consuming less glycemic food. But secondly, protein also helps in muscle synthesis.
Yeah.
So is that the mechanism behind
both.
that?
One is you're reducing the carbs, so that helps. Two, you're replacing with protein, which helps in muscle building and preventing sarcopenia, that kind of thing. If you add protein to a meal and do a CGM, okay, you take a pure carb, and now you take that same carb but you add the protein, you will find it's blunted.
Yes.
Because that's why they say eat the protein first.
Yes.
If you're having your egg, first eat your egg, and then by the time it will start blunting the glucose response. So protein acts in many ways.
Yep.
It doesn't increase your cholesterol, doesn't increase your sugar, doesn't increase your insulin level. Okay, so in many ways it's good for tackling insulin resistance, whereas carbs are directly adding to your insulin resistance. It will increase your glucose level, to increase your insulin level, so your insulin resistance goes up, your inflammation goes up, all that you're cutting off when you add protein.
I know we're going to run out of time very soon, but I really want to talk about your ABCD mantra.
Okay.
You have said that it is your dream that we will soon have a diabetes complications-free India, as well as diabetes complication-free world.
Yeah.
And this is eminently doable if we follow the ABCD mantra. A stands for A1C, HbA1c, B stands for blood pressure, C stands for cholesterol. And if we keep this under control, then that has a profound impact. I think A, B, and C most people understand. So I want to talk about D, which is discipline, which basically includes diet, exercise, avoiding tobacco, and limiting alcohol intake. So most people know ABC, but like I said, I want to focus on D. We are living in a world that is engineered to make us undisciplined. So how do you advise your patients to actually stick to the diet and exercise? And what is the missing link between knowing what to do and actually doing it?
It's a very difficult question because behavior change is not easy for people. I think this goes back to the days of Adam and Eve. When God said, don't eat that apple, what did Adam do? He ate that apple, isn't it? So right from that time, it's not easy for a human being. You tell them not to do. I know people who have not had diabetes, who are not at all fond of sweets. And then once they become diabetic, and then we tell them don't eat sweet. Now the whole mind is focused on the sweet now. because they've deprived of something.
They're like my-
Till then they haven't missed it.
They're
Now,
like my
now
children.
they're missing it.
They're like my children. Whatever I tell them not to do,
Not to do,
exactly
they
what
will do, because they exactly they have to do. So human beings are like that. So if you tell people to do this and to do that, it has to come from within.
Yeah.
There's no point in telling them. So when people have had within their family, like you, where you've had instances in the family which you're continuously referring in your book to your father and your brother-in-law, so that kind of a thing motivates people. Oh, I shouldn't, they've seen somebody's leg being cut off or something. That's a very powerful, or kidney failure, and they say, I don't want to do that, I want to do that. Otherwise, they think it's a touch of diabetes, everybody has it, and so they don't take it seriously. I think repeatedly talking to them, that is where if they measure A1C, if they measure glucose level, CGM, then they, oh my God, I went overboard, Diwali came and then I went overboard. Some kind of a correction factor. In the D, I would also add among all that you have said, two more things. One is regular checkup. We have shown that in a paper which we published many years ago, we showed regularity of follow-up and prevention of complication. See, there are people who come every 3 months, 4 months, that means 4 times a year they visit us. Okay? There are others who will come once a year or once in 2 years. Some won't come back at all, forget about them. Now those who are coming once a year, once in 2 years, as compared to those who come every 3 months or 4 months, we call them as regulars and irregulars. And we just track their A1Cs over a period of time. On an average, between 1 to 1.5% lower A1Cs they had, those who came for regular follow-up. Why? Because every time they come, we are talking to them.
Yeah.
It goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. Otherwise, it's just going up. They didn't come. They didn't know. They didn't check. So from 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, now they come. Now you have to bring it from 10 to 7. Otherwise 7 to 8, oh, it's gone to 8, okay, I'll be careful. So it brings it to 7.5 or 7. Then it again goes to 8, okay, I'll bring it. So his average becomes 7.5, or whereas there the average will become 8.5, 9, 9.5 HbA1c, okay. What we found is over a 9-year period, where we followed about 1,600 people over a 9-year period, there was a 50% reduction in new onset kidney disease and eye trouble in those who came regularly. So regularity of follow-up is very important. Many of my walking friends who walk with me are also having diabetes. They are my patients also. So I'll tell him, hey boss, haven't seen you for a few months. I'm perfectly okay, doctor. I don't need to come. If I come and see you, you'll tell me don't eat this, don't eat that. So I'm not coming. He says, like the ostrich principle. You know? Ostrich puts a head under the ground and think nobody can see it. So like that, they keep fooling themselves that nothing is wrong. If they only come, then they should hear one of their friends died or something, then they'll come running.
Yeah.
There was fear, then let me also check. Or liver, something happened, cirrhosis happened. Oh, okay, let me check my liver now, I'll come and check. Only that drives people. Otherwise, they keep saying, so in many of my videos, I keep saying, are you feeling completely okay? Then go for your checkup. Are you not feeling okay? Then go for your checkup. You know, because checkup, when you talk about that, people think, oh, I want them to come because I want to make money.
Yeah.
It's not that at all.
No, not at all.
I am saying because you're missing an opportunity. You're missing an opportunity to correct. Why are you wearing CGM? Every meal, every hour you can correct. Leave that. Every 3 months, some sugar, HbA1c, at least that you can do, and then you correct. Otherwise, after 1 year, you're going to see, naturally people will fall out of line. Nobody is that paranoid that even if I don't go, I will follow exactly the same thing every day. How many people are like that? Some OCD people will be like that. Nobody else will be like that. You know, so the average person needs that follow-up. So in the D discipline, going for a checkup is very important. One of the tips that I would give people is your day starts in the night when you go to bed. That's a principle. Nobody thinks about it that way. I have followed this principle every day. Okay, I have to get up at 5 every morning. Then only I can get to my walk by 5:30. If I don't go by 5:30, my friends will go. They won't wait for me.
Right.
They won't call me and say, are you coming? They will go. Then I have to find where they are and so on. So in order that I don't miss them, I cannot be late even by 1 minute. 5:30 they'll leave. Okay. Up to 5:30 there's that time for me. 5:30 they'll just go. So every day to do that I have to get up at 5. If I have to get up at 5, I have to sleep by 10:30. So my day starts when I go to bed.
That's a very well
If
said.
I do that, then my walk is over. Then I come back, then I do my stretching, I do my flexibility, I have my tea, then I do my pranayama, I do my meditation, I do all that. Then I'm ready.
Yep.
My stress has gone down, everything has gone down, I finished my exercise, I already got my 5,000 steps ready for the day. Now, during the day, you instead of taking a lift, you walk up, you do this, all that will give you only 2,000-3,000 steps. You're not going to get more unless you do that morning walk. You are not going to get, or as you have written in the book, after every meal you keep walking. In the office it's difficult,
It's difficult,
you know? It's nice if you're able to do that, but immediately after that you got a call, you got a Zoom call, I'll walk and come 10 minutes, finish it up, finish your morning walk, then you look for every opportunity to do that. So that kind of a discipline, unless you bring that discipline in, forget whether you have diabetes or don't have diabetes, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't have diabetes, you don't have diabetes. Why are we following these rules every day? Because health, good health is, if you have diabetes already you're starting at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But even if you don't have diabetes, as Asian Indians, we are
Predisposed for it.
already predisposed to premature heart disease, to premature liver disease, to all kinds of things. So I think if we do not want to join that sick nation thing, discipline is very important. And these are very low hanging fruit. You don't put too much of rice and chapati, look for your protein, look for your vegetable, look for that thali, half of it filled with vegetables, 1/4 you reserve for protein, now you go for your carbs. Automatically the carb comes down, you're given a healthy diet. See that at least 5 to 6 days in a week you do some exercise, reduce your stress, do some pranayama, breathing, meditation, whatever you want to do yoga, stress something. These are all very low cost kind of things which doesn't cost you anything. You don't need to go to a costly gym and work out and all that. You know, you can do it anybody can, if you want to go to a gym, you can still go. But for the common man, Aam Aadmi, I think all these simple things, doing it every day. The problem with people is, they do it for 1 month, then they'll give up. Some excuse they'll wait for, oh my son's exam came, or some marriage came, or I went abroad. Even if I go abroad, I carry my shoe with me. But having brought the shoe, if you don't walk, why did I bring the shoe? So you carry your t-shirt with you, carry your shoe with you, then you will automatically walk there. And people think, when they go on holiday, it's forgetting everything. When a foreigner goes on a holiday, he's doing mountain climbing, he's doing surfing, he's playing football, he's playing tennis, he's playing something. What do? We start first of all we get a plate, we watch movie, we get a plate, then we have that big buffet breakfast. By the time you eaten that, you're feeling sleepy now, so you sleep, watch some more TV. Then we don't want to go in the sun because we'll get dark, so we stay. They'll be lying in the sun the whole time getting the vitamin D. We'll be avoiding the sun. Then we'll have lunch, then one more big lunch buffet. Then evening 5 o'clock, after the sun has set, 5:30 we come out, little bit we'll walk around. Then one more heavy dinner, watch some movie and then sleep. This is what we do when you go on holiday. Every holiday you will gain 3 kg.
True.
Very difficult to get that 3 kg down.
Yeah.
Before you went on the holiday, you were better. After the holiday, now all the other weight you have to lose, plus this 3 kg also you have to lose. It's a losing game. All the time you are losing. And we take pride in that. And so I remember when I went, on a lighter note, when I went to Switzerland, we went the mountain cliff, you take off, and paragliding and all you do. So we were walking up the thing. Then he asked me, the guy was going, are you like a typical Indian who cannot even walk 20 steps? Or I said, no, I'm not that bad. I'm not a great athlete, but I'm a little better than that. Then he said, why? I asked, because even this, going up this little slope, people give up at that time itself and then they go off and all that. They can't even do that. So that's the impression that, I'm sorry to say, but you're from India, I have to ask you this. This is the impression people have about us.
Dr. Mohan, 2 quick questions. What is one thing that you will tell doctors to unlearn when it comes to diabetes management?
One of the things that doctors, I would ask them to do is forget about the late stage complications and focus early. When you see somebody who has come to your clinic, whom you are treating, look at who has come with them. If you see an obese child, when I say child, maybe 25 years old, 30-year-old, they may be already having pre-diabetes or diabetes. That is the thing that you have to, we are never taught in medical college, we are only taught look at this person. So while we do all the thing to that, at least in passing can say, hey, why don't you also check up, yeah? We can detect you in a pre-diabetic stage or a pre-pre-diabetic stage and prevent it for you, and give some kind of an incentive for them to come. So that is something which they should learn, and unlearn that only treating a late stage of the disease is something which you should do, but you should look at the preventive, where the preventive cap. That is something I would tell.
That's a really good advice.
Yeah.
Dr. Mohan, you know the data better than anyone else. You know exactly what excess blood glucose does to our blood vessels and other effects of it. How has this knowledge changed how you live? So when you go back home tonight, what is going to be on your dinner plate, and what is, one food you effectively consume less or don't consume or you've banned? So tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll end on that note.
I'm 70 plus now, so luckily, touch wood, no blood pressure, no diabetes, no lipids. So I've been lucky that way. So I don't have to do anything extreme. But this D that I talked about, the discipline part, for many years I have followed that. For example, exercise, at least 40, 50 years now I've been doing exercise. Never miss it. Maybe one day in a week I may miss, but otherwise I'm a very regular in exercise. At least 15, 20 years ago, I added also pranayama, meditation, so that keeps me, otherwise I tend to get very excited and hyper. So that also I do. As far as my food is concerned, I just cut down on the carbs. So whenever I eat, I find that where is my protein? I know I've turned vegetarian. I used to take non-veg, but last 10, 15 years I've turned vegetarian by choice. And so after that I've realized that you don't get enough protein as a vegetarian. So I started looking for the two things. One is vegetables and second is protein, vegetable protein. So I can't take meat or fish or whatever. So eggs I do take, because I feel I don't get enough protein. So I do take eggs. So that part of it, the diet is well taken care of. I do have a sweet tooth. So I do like a little dessert wherever I can get. I try to reduce the portion size, and on my CGM I find it hardly affects. When you cut down the other carbs,
right?
If you like sweet, for example, if I like a sweet, I'll cut down the carbs to so little that sweet can then replace what I've taken. So that way my sugar hardly goes up, my insulin levels are normal, my HOMA is normal, everything that I can measure, my triglycerides are normal, my liver fat is now almost completely gone. I was 3-4 kilograms. In fact, I worn the same clothes when I was in college 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago.
Wow.
When I was in England 1984, we had Marks and Spencer there. The same size, I've never changed it from 1984 to 2025. It's the same size, same waist size, same shirt size,
Incredible.
Same everything, the last 40, 50 years. It's just that regular kind of thing, nothing in extreme. I don't run marathon, I don't do anything, but I'm regular with my exercise. And then my sleep, for years now, I've seen at 10:30 I should get into bed, otherwise my morning routine will go. So just following these rules which I tell patients, and then it's nice to have some cheat days, otherwise you feel that you're missing out on something in life. So on a Sunday or something, we'll order in something and then eat a little bit more of that. Then you don't feel that you've deprived yourself of something. Finding the right balance, I think, is the right word. And if you just follow that, for people with diabetes, you have to push a little more.
Right.
It's not enough if you do this. You have to be a little bit more strict in that. But even there, people will say, can I have one sweet once a week? I feel sorry for them when they ask like that. I'll say, have it, but have a little smaller portion. Don't take a huge portion, which for the next 1 week will upset your sugar. Take a little bit and be happy, so that craving will not be there.
Yeah. Dr. Mohan, I would just say in the end that you and your family's work has had a massive positive influence, impact on India. But I won't speak on behalf of India. I will speak on my personal behalf. I think you've been a huge inspiration for me. I have used so much of your work in my book, and I think this book wouldn't be possible without all the work that you have done. So extremely thankful for what you've done. This is an incredible honor to sit with you and have a chat. And thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Wish you all the best. You told me that the book has just been officially released. A lot of people don't know about it. I have been talking to people about it. There's a lot of common sense in what you have written, and you have done a lot of experiments on yourself. Your motivation comes out very strongly in this. Your passion comes out very strongly. I hope, and all the things that you've written are factually correct, and therefore I think more and more people, every home should have this. And from my side, I will actually promote this book, because I think people should read it. The way you have written it with the utmost clarity, the message comes through strong and clear. So happy to work with you, and happy to share some more of our research work which you might have missed. And I hope that this message reaches not just Indians. It's mostly Indian and South Asian based, which is 1/4 of the world, as you know. 2 billion people is 25% of the whole world. And the Western population is slightly different. What we say doesn't directly apply to them. So I wish you all the very best, and I hope you continue to. I've also seen your Instagram videos, which are very powerful messages. Hope to continue to work together with you.
Thank you so much, sir.
For the benefit of the health of the Indian people.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and it's truly an honor to be here and talk to you.
Thank you.